Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome in. In this one, we're going to be breaking down the AFC East heading into 2022, and just to keep it fair, we're going to go in order of how the teams finished last year. So with that being said, let's jump in. Okay, so first up, we got the Buffalo Bills here. Now, look, this was a huge offseason for Buffalo, and it was one of those situations where the Bills are already at the top, right? I believe they were like 13 seconds away from going to the Super Bowl. Okay, so they were right there. They could obviously hang with any team in the AFC, any team in the NFL, and they went out and they made some massive moves. Okay, now it's kind of weird because the Bills, I feel like they're good for like one blockbuster move every couple of years, whether it's, I remember when they acquired T.O. all those seasons ago. Mario Williams, the former Texans defensive end, former first overall pick. That was a huge acquisition back in the day. Recently, they made the trade for Stephon Diggs. And then, of course, this offseason, they had another splash move. We're going to get into it. But when we take a look at the 2021 season, they finished 11-6. Their offense, they were fifth, right? Fifth in the National Football League. They were ninth in passing, sixth in rushing. And then when we flip it and look at the defense, man, they were the best in football. The number one defense in the entire NFL, best defending against the pass, and 13th against the run. Okay, now they started off hot, they ended really strong, which really was the majority of all of their wins, right? They had, in the first 5 weeks of the season, they were 4-1, and then in the last 5 weeks of the season, they were also 4-1. Okay, so really good start and good ending. So if we take those numbers and sprinkle in a few wins in the middle of the season, obviously the Bills are going to walk away with a pretty solid record when it's all said and done. Fast forward to the 2022 offseason, some of their key additions. Signing Von Miller was huge. 6-year contract. This was the splash. This was the big blockbuster move that the Buffalo Bills, some would argue that they didn't necessarily need to make this move, but, some would argue that point, right? I think the Bills are kind of a superstar away from being that contender, or really a Super Bowl contender here, and Von Miller has the experience. He obviously fits the defense, and he has a fantastic resume to back up what he's done so far. They also went out and acquired tight end O.J. Howard, Roger Saffold, Jamison Crowder, former Jet. So, when we take a look at the free agency moves, the Bills were active here. Now, they did lose a couple pieces, Darrell Williams on the offensive line, Cole Beasley, and Emmanuel Sanders. So, a couple depth losses, but I think when it's all said and done, the Bills got better through free agency. If we take a look at their 2022 draft, I was a big fan of their first-round pick, Kaiir Elam, cornerback from Florida, back when he was in school. James Cook, obviously a high upside running back in round 2, and they also selected a punter in round 6, which, I think the Bills fans were all clamoring for an upgrade at the punter position, and, I'm looking at Buffalo right now, and I think if I had to pinpoint the most fascinating or intriguing move for me this offseason, it's got to be the Von Miller acquisition, okay? Going back to him, all these other moves are nice. Again, Elam, Cook, O.J. Howard, like solid depth pieces all around, but I think Von Miller, that's just to me, it kind of just seems like the last ingredient where this team could legitimately be knocking on the door of a Super Bowl next season. Okay, so I think when we're projecting Buffalo into 2022, they're going to continue this positive trend moving forward, right? We've seen a lot of success under Sean McDermott, and I think it's going to continue. I will say this, though. Really difficult schedule. Okay, you look at that start of the season. I mean, they're going up week 1 against the LA Rams, week 2 Tennessee Titans. They have a lot of really talented teams clustered in the first, I want to say, half of the schedule. Okay, so that's something to watch for. But all in all, I'm pretty high on Buffalo. Okay, so next up we got the New England Patriots here, and interestingly enough, they were kind of in the same boat as the New York Jets, where they selected a quarterback in round 1 of the NFL draft, and then they proceeded to start him week 1. Okay, so we take a look at the 2021 season, and as much as I hate to say it, given the circumstances, the Patriots, they had a pretty good year, right? They finished 10-7, second place in the AFC East. When we look at their offense, they were 18th in all of football, 14th in passing, 8th in running. When we look at the defense, they were 4th, right? So another team in the AFC East that had a top 5 defense. That's crazy. They were 2nd against the pass. They were 22nd against the run. So definitely an area that they needed to clean up going into this offseason. But man, 2021, it wasn't the, from an eye test perspective, it wasn't the prettiest thing, but the Patriots, they won a bunch of games. And obviously they made it to the playoffs last season. We fast forward to the 2022 free agency period. They got some pretty nice acquisitions. Mac Wilson in a trade with the Cleveland Browns. They actually went out and they traded for wide receiver Devontae Parker as well, which I thought was pretty interesting, an in-division trade. And I actually am pretty high on Parker. I do feel like he's a little underrated at this point in his career. They also brought back cornerback Malcolm Butler. Now, when we take a look at the other side of the coin, the Patriots did lose a lot, okay? Starting off with offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels, obviously becoming the head coach of the Vegas Raiders, but then on the field, they lost J.C. Jackson to free agency, signing that humongous deal with the Chargers, one of the best corners in all of football. You can make an argument, like an elite corner, one of the top 2, top 3. You can make that argument. It's not crazy to say that. Linebacker Kyle Van Noy is no longer in the picture, and they also traded away guard Shaq Mason. Okay, so I think it's pretty safe to say when we look at, free agency acquisitions versus subtractions, if you will, they lost a little bit more than they gained. Okay, now we look at the draft. This was it definitely the Patriots took a lot of heat. They went with Cole Strange, guard from Chattanooga, in round 1. A lot of people kind of thought he was going to go late round 2, early round 3, somewhere in that range. But I'll tell you what, they actually selected 2 cornerbacks that I really like. Marcus Jones, corner from Houston, in round 3, and then of course Jack Jones, corner from Arizona State, in round 4. I like both of those guys a lot, but I think when we take a look at the big picture here, I think it all comes down to Mac Jones. Will he look like the same quarterback? Will he take that step in the right direction? This was a guy running a really complex system last season with, he really didn't have that number 1 guy. Yeah, he was stacked at tight end, and there were some solid role players, and the Patriots have done a great job over the years of really making sure their quarterback knows where to go with the football, that he has his outlets, he has his checkdowns, but at the end of the day, you still actually have to go out there and execute, and that's exactly what Mac Jones did. Decisive, accurate with the football, didn't put it in harm's way, hardly turned it over. Now, of course, you can make the argument he didn't really attempt to push the ball downfield a lot. He wasn't really successful deep down the field, and it's valid, right? But at the same time, the Patriots walked away last season with 10 wins and a rookie quarterback with not a ton of help offensively. Part of that is just the quick little just chipping away on the offense side of the football. It works for them. Now, I will say this. I think for me, the most interesting, most intriguing aspect of the 2022 version of the Patriots here, what is happening at offensive coordinator. The team brought back Joe Judge. There's been some talks that it could be Matt Patricia. Maybe I'm a little behind on it. I got to do some reading. But what is happening at OC? Who's going to be calling plays? The offense side of the football is so important, especially in today's game. What is the plan there? Who is going to be taking the reins as offensive coordinator? I'm definitely going to be eager to find out. Okay, so next up here, we got the Miami Dolphins, an absolutely insane offseason, right? I feel like a lot of Dolphins fans out there are totally amped up for the upcoming season. I mean, it was just headline after headline after headline. We take a look at their 2021 season. They finished 9-8, 3rd place in the AFC East, the 25th total offense in all of football. They were 17th in the passing game, 30th in the running game. Okay, so that's a huge red flag right there. In total defense, they were 15th. 16th against the pass, 13th against the run, and man, 2021 was just a complete Jekyll and Hyde show. I mean, they start off the season with a win in New England, awesome, things are looking up, and then they proceed to go on this massive losing streak, which is like unheard of, and then in the last 10 weeks of the season, outside of the bye week, this team loses 1 game. Okay, so they win 8 out of 9, finish the season extremely strong, and then they fire Brian Flores. Okay, they bring in Mike McDaniel from San Francisco, much like the New York Jets did with Robert Saleh and Mike LaFleur, trying to bring over those systems, trying to bring over the culture. Miami obviously trying to do the same thing here, but then free agency starts. Okay, and this is where the Dolphins start making some crazy moves. Okay, Chase Edmonds, Cedric Wilson, Teddy Bridgewater, some solid depth pieces there. Specifically with Teddy Bridgewater, there's been a lot of speculation about Tua, this and that. If Tua isn't the answer, if he gets hurt, whatever the case is, if Tua does not work out next season, especially in the early parts, you have a seasoned veteran back there in Bridgewater that can take snaps and possibly win some games. But look, let's cut to the chase here. The big name acquisitions are insane. Tyreek Hill, one of the game's best wide receivers. They acquired him. Yes, they gave up a ton, and they signed him to a ton. Massive trade compensation, massive contract, but man, Tyreek Hill, again, one of the best wide receivers in all of football. I would say definitely the most dynamic receiver in all of football. They go out and sign tackle Terron Armstead, one of the best left tackles in the entire game. Okay, so this team goes out and they add depth, number one, they add system fits, and then they go out and they add some superstars. As far as the subtractions go, they didn't really lose a whole lot. Will Fuller, Jason McCourty, not a ton that, it's not like Dolphins fans are going to be losing sleep over the loss of Will Fuller. It's just not going to happen. We look at the 2022 draft class, and obviously the team was strapped for picks because of the Tyreek Hill trade, but they actually did walk away with Channing Tindall, the linebacker from Georgia, a guy who has great speed, obviously playing on the on college football's best defense. I was a big fan of that pick for Miami in the middle rounds there. I just felt like it was good value, but look, all in all, I think a lot of this, the Dolphins are investing heavily into this season. You're not going to go out and sign Armstead and trade for Hill, mortgage the future, if you will, trading away all these draft picks if you're not serious about competing. Okay, this was a Dolphins team that, despite the really rough start early, they won a bunch of games at the back half. So this team does have talent, but I think for me the most intriguing part is the pass catchers. And of course, how does Mike McDaniel work as a first-year head coach, and is Tua the answer? But thinking about the potential with the pass catchers, Jalen Waddle, one of the game's best young wide receivers, adding Tyreek Hill like we said, but then also having Mike Gesicki, an extremely talented pass-catching tight end. I would really, in the short passing game, knowing Tua, his game, knowing this offense, which the Jets do very well, and the talent that this team has in the short, 5, 10 yard, 10, 15, I want to say, like anything, 15 yards and in, like this team can be deadly. Yards after the catch, everything like that, short passing attack. I think that is something that teams have to watch out for with the Miami Dolphins. And last but not least, we got the New York Jets here. Okay, now much like the Miami Dolphins, another huge offseason for a team in the AFC East. Okay, this team went out and they spent money. As we all know, they went out and they spent a ton of draft picks. They upgraded at multiple positions of need, adding talent, adding culture, adding leadership to the organization. Let's talk about 2021 though first. They finished 4-13, fourth place in the AFC East. They were 26th in total offense, 20th in the passing game, 27th in rushing. When we flip it over to the defensive side of the football, it does not get any better. Unfortunately, the worst defense in football, 32nd. Against the pass, they were 30th. Against the running game, they were 29th. Okay, again, 4-13, nothing to write home about, but I will say, as all the Jets fans know, they experienced a ton of injuries to, let's face it, star players. Mekhi Becton, Carl Lawson, Marcus May had a season ender, Corey Davis had a season ender, right? We had some depth guys go down with injuries as well, like LaMarcus Joyner and Vinny Curry. Everybody I felt like had an injury at some point in time. Everybody kind of was banged up. But look, 2022 rolls around, the offseason, and free agency, it starts with a bang. The Jets added a ton of guys here. Laken Tomlinson, Tyler Conklin, Jordan Whitehead, DJ Reed, CJ Uzama. They brought back Braxton Berrios. All upgrades, all key signings, in my opinion, for the New York Jets. They had to go out and they had to spend the money. They had to. We could not survive another offseason of just kind of waiting around and maybe bringing in one guy that's going to be a rotational piece. No, the Jets had to spend some money. They went out, they did that. You look at the subtractions. Marcus May, it's definitely going to hurt. One of my favorite players over these past couple seasons. Loved him back in college at UF. He, of course, went on to sign with the New Orleans Saints. The Jets also lost Morgan Moses to the Baltimore Ravens, and then Jamison Crowder to the Buffalo Bills. Now, looking at the 2022 draft, this is another massive improvement for this Jets organization. Okay, in my opinion, it's an A+ draft. Sauce Gardner, Jermaine Johnson, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, all day one starters. All upgrades at their respective positions. And then in the back half of the draft, guys like Michael Clemens, Max Mitchell, Jeremy Rucker, all depth pieces, right? Guys that we might not necessarily need them this upcoming season, but in future years like 2023, 2024, these guys' names could be called on. Okay, Max Mitchell could very well be a starter for the Jets in 2023. I could see that happening. Michael Clemens, his upside, his aggressiveness, his violence that he brings to the position, I definitely see him getting some playing time his rookie season. But all in all, I really feel like the Jets knocked it out of the park in both free agency and the draft, and I feel like I could speak for a lot of Jets fans when I say that here. I think for me the biggest or really the most intriguing aspect of this Jets organization going into 2022, the quarterback position, right? We talked about it. Joe Douglas, he did his job. We could go down the list of how many positives, how many benefits that all these new faces are going to bring to this team, how much better shape the Jets are in today than they were, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But it all falls on the quarterback's shoulders. We all know Zach Wilson has the talent. It seems like he really wants to get better. He really wants to work at the position. He has the arm strength. He has the mobility. He has all the tools to be a successful NFL quarterback. I mean, at the end of the day, the guy was the second overall pick in the draft. Okay, so it falls on his shoulders. That, to me, is the most intriguing aspect of the Jets organization going into next season. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. What are you expecting from all the teams in the AFC East here? And of course, we're still in June, so it's hard to project how everything is going to line up as far as, a 1 through 4 ranking, but it could also just be fun to talk about. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, and as always, go Jets.